And stop smiling. Alright, cool. Ready?
I feel like I've got crisps in my teeth.
Welcome to Keeping Tabs on the SABBs.
We are live on KTV, and for the next hour, we'll be giving this sabbatical officer a good grilling for questions.
So, as we go, if you want to submit a question, please leave a comment on YouTube or tweet us using Ken_TV.
Before we start, we just have a quick announcement to say that Tom Curry won't be joining us on the sofa this afternoon as he's not feeling very well. Hope you get better soon, Tom.
Get well. So, let's begin. And joining us first is Nina Memi, Vice President of Sports. Hi, Nina.
Hi. Oh, you need to call me Nanny.
Nina, sorry.
Everyone always sorry.
How are you anyway? How's the term going so far?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good actually. Tired today, but good.
Right, so let's start off with the first question. Do you feel barriers preventing engagement in sport from all members of a student body are physical or technical?
Oh, it's a bit philosophical, isn't it? Good question. Do I feel like they're physical? I feel like in terms of, I don't know why I'm just thinking about the question again. Yeah, there are some physical barriers in terms of cost elements. I think that's kind of what people are asking. Yeah, there are. I can name probably the four main barriers that I personally think and what we've had from students. Generally, cost and the accessibility of cost to sport is a massive barrier. We're doing lots of work on access for students with disabilities to sport. I think that's another big barrier that hopefully by the end of the year we'll have the full audit complete and plans for September 2016. So yeah, there are physical barriers there.
Do you know how you're going to get around it?
So the university gave us some money actually, which is incredible, to run a full audit into actually what we offer for students on campus and if they've got disability issues and actually like what the current access to sport is, and it's very, very, very minimal, and actually running an audit into what we can do, like how they can fit into like our club structures, like how we have to train our club committees in terms of that stuff, so which is a really, really good piece of work actually. And then there obviously are some barriers around like lad culture, access for women in sport, which is a big thing, trying to break down the culture there. And again, there are access issues for the LGBT community, which we're doing a lot of work on and ensuring that all students feel included within our sport structures. Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to say more?
We have another question.
Yeah. I don't know how long. I'm just like, I could talk at you all day.
Yeah.
So can you please update the student body on your progress of academic-free Wednesdays?
Good question. Yes, I'd love to, begrudgingly. Yeah, so we're facing a lot of resistance at the minute, which is quite frustrating in terms of we are making progress, just very slow. So we thought we had a big win this time last year. No, sorry, May last year. But actually there's... and Jack and probably will say more, that's the Vice President of Education, we're working very closely together. So we have a policy in place, it's just actually how much we stick to that and how much we extend and put value on what I believe is great extracurricular activity. So we went back to London Teachable, we're to and fro at the minute and looking at kind of the amount of lessons that are currently taking place on a Wednesday, but hopefully pushing for that and pushing again for online lecture recordings and stuff like that. But we should have something in place by September next year. It's just extremely frustrating. The way that the university structures work, it all has to go through like strategic boards, etc. But yeah, update, yeah, it's still going ahead frustratingly, but any feedback we get, please keep sending it over because it's really helpful to show that we still need it.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. If you do want to do that, please tweet in onto that.
Yes,
especially,
please.
Yes.
Please do.
Could you explain to the student body your role on the NUS National Executive Council and how you will manage this role alongside your position as VP Sports?
Yes, I wish I knew what my role was. No, I'm joking. So it's the National Executive Council Committee, for NUS. So we sit alongside the full-time officers there. I think there are 18 of them. That's a random guess. So we effectively make policy, submit policy, and control the policy for higher education within and the National Union of Students. It's really cool. It's really, really good to have someone from a sport and extracurricular background, I think, to make more reasonable views and actually represent what students think. I think they're often like quite big political divide. So how am I going to control it? Easily, I think. A lot of the work that I do here, I would hope to take on to the national level as well. I think they're all just important to every student, and actually, and one thing I massively believe in, that I feel it's unfair that how certain students get different privileges at different institutions because they've either got like a well-run student union or a good student body or a good university, and actually, is that fair? And should all students have the same access to things like, for me, sport, or like the great thing that you have over KTV, and actually how do we regulate that and make that better for all students and not depend on how much block grant you get. So yeah, I think I will be able to manage it, and I'm managing it okay, but yeah, as I say, it's just stuff we're doing both here at Kent and nationally, which is really good.
Good.
Next question. Have you been to any Medway fixtures this year?
I have been to only one. I haven't been to many here actually, so don't grill me on that. Yeah, no, I have. Yeah, I actually trying to work with, which is actually a pay and coordinate the Team Medway exec as well. So obviously I chair the Team Kent exec, which is the committee of 8 that sit below me, but still trying to get dates in the diary for that. But doing the same work we do over here with those students, and between myself and the vice president activities at Greenwich, mentoring those officers in the position there. To get them the same experience. We're doing a big paper on Medway actually whilst we're on that, around like provision of sport on their campus, because it's massively different to what we have here, and access to sport on that campus as well. So busy writing.
How would you compare the sport at Medway to the sport in Canterbury?
Where do I start? The fact they don't have any on-campus facilities, or very little on-campus facilities. The fact that the sport isn't run by it's not a university department, so it's local facilities. We have a very low engagement for women on the Medway campus, which is a real shame. Different type of student on that campus, so they have two very, very different experiences, and it's a real shame that actually the university aren't wanting to do more about it, because their student experience shouldn't be different to what we have here.
What would you say you could do to fix this?
What do they do to fix this? Well, how the university works, you have to write papers, which is fun if you ever become an officer, enjoy. So yeah, firstly, writing a paper that's going to a board in Medway. And just what will we do? Ideally have a sports park on the Medway campus. Will that happen? Hopefully. But yeah, just more on-campus facilities and getting an understanding, actually, what the students want over there, because as I say, they're very different type of students, but access to facilities is the biggest thing, definitely, facilities and cost of sport, and obviously Greenwich students are involved as well, so the dynamic is crazy. Yeah, write a paper is my answer to everything. I wish it wasn't, as have the university like, write a paper, oh great.
Okay, what is your process for suspending members of sports clubs who have misbehaved? And do you give people the right to reply?
Good question. I suppose that depends on the extremity of the offence. If we're talking about something that potentially is breaking the law or against any of our zero tolerance policies, then we have to suspend them immediately, unfortunately, because they're the policies that we're in line with. Yeah, they do get a chance to respond. We undergo a formal investigation. Fun job for me as the chair of the student disciplinary panel. But I think it definitely depends on the severity. If we're talking about something like misconduct I'm trying to think of an example that wouldn't be breaking data protection. Yeah, it does depend massively on how serious it is, and I'm sure you understand if it's breaking the law, then actually it's not us that withholds them, it's the law. But yeah, they do get a chance to respond. If it has to escalate to a formal procedure, then they'll have to go through the formal process. But if it's just kind of come in and have a chat. But yeah, I try and support everyone through the process, whether they're on the good or bad side.
It's good to know that it's there.
Yeah, no, well, and that's the thing, you don't realise it's there until you have to use it, which is good, but yeah, I dealt with many issues. It depends, and again, it depends whether the university find out first, and actually then how that works, because that gets escalated. But I try and tell people to tell me if anything goes wrong, because I'd rather know first.
I mean, is it difficult for someone with a sport background to do something like this, to punish people who misbehave? Is it difficult?
Yeah, and I think there's a massive respect thing in it as well. And I know that different officers have different approaches. I personally would rather speak to the people myself. That's just because that's the person that I am. But I know that previous officers have wanted to go through staff members. But actually, if you don't respect the officer and don't get that respect from someone, then Like, yeah, it's a bit weird. But no, it's weird, especially if it's someone from like a club that you've been a part of, or someone that you're friends with. That was a bit weird at first. I was like, oh, hi, saw you out last night, and now we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I not enjoy that at all. I wouldn't say enjoy it, but yeah, I like to know what's going on with most things. But it is difficult at times. Like serious Nina for like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Next question. What would you say is the main function of a student union, and how do you work around this function?
What would I personally say is the main function of a student union, is probably different to what the others would say, is supporting students and enhancing their student experience. I see us as giving students a great time here, and mainly through like volunteering and running student groups, whether that's sports, society, like RAG volunteering. I think that's our most valuable function. Obviously, the others' functions help support that, and representation, obviously, as an officer. We're here to ensure that you have the best time at university and represent you to your institution, so the University of Kent. But definitely, for me, sport, love it. Obviously, you lot as well, volunteering, yeah, it's the best.
All right, we'll go through our final question.
Yeah.
What has been your greatest achievement for this academic year so far?
Greatest achievement, can I do 2, 1, 5?
You can do 2.
Yeah,
go
greedy,
on.
aren't I? Greatest achievement. It probably sounds really boring, actually. Hopefully commissioning, well, we are a joint sports strategy that's governed by both Kent Union and Kent Sport, which will be amazing, because hopefully volunteer-led sport will be like fundamental at the centre to that, which will feed back into the university strategic plan. It sounds really boring, but I don't think people understand the impact of it until it actually happens, and we currently don't have a jointly governed strategy, so we face some friction. But yeah, that, and I think for generally wider body, the split payment memberships, which will be in place for Kent Sport next year to give people better access to sport. Yeah, those 2.
All right, fantastic. Okay.
Thank you. I realised I just spoke at you. Sorry.
No, not a
As I was
problem. Not a
supposed
problem.
to do.
Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time. That's all the questions we have. But to remind the viewers at home, you can tweet us at Kent_TV if you have any questions at all. Yes, so thank you very much,
Thank
Nina.
you,
Thank
thanks.
you.
My skirt.
So I absolutely I love sports because I am the coordinator of sport for KTV. It's it's my role. But do you have any favourite sports? Do you have any?
Well, I play football in the KFL Amateur League, and football's on OO Sports. I was going to join Kent Snow, but I never got around to it.
Oh no!
I paid and it didn't actually go.
It's always the way. It's always the way.
Okay. And next up we have Rory.
Hello.
Hi, Rory. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you two?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. There we go. Okay, we're going to go straight into it.
Go
We're
for
gonna- So the first question is, since the changes to the democratic structures of Kent Union took place, how has it affected student democracy?
I think last year we had a really challenging year with engaging students in our democracy. I think what we've got now, students are engaging in it. I don't think we've had as many students engaging in it as we'd want to, but I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. And I think a lot about it is about getting students to use the systems and understand that hopefully if they put an idea, if we change it, students agree with it, we'll see real change from that. So hopefully over the next sort of 6 months to the end of the academic year, we'll see more students engaged in it.
Are you pleased as to what's happened?
I think it's a really positive change from last year. I'm really, really hoping that we get some really good stuff out of it. And at the moment, some of the ideas on there are really, really fantastic, and hopefully we can move that forward.
Oh, fantastic.
Next question. In your manifesto, you mentioned a £2.99 meal deal. However, the current meal deal,
£2 meal deal.
£2 meal deal, sorry. but current meal deal has gone up to £3.25. Will we ever see a change in the meal deal in essentials?
Yes, so we were discussing final details of £2 meal deal last week. So at the moment, we'll hopefully have it in place for January, but I can't release too much information yet, but I'm really excited that it'll be there, £2 meal deal in January. Fingers crossed.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. And how much money did you spend on Mental Health Week, given that there were dogs and fairground rides?
I can't tell
Do you
you.
think it's actually changed anything?
I can't tell you the exact figures like we spent because I wouldn't know. Dogs were absolutely free, so charity brings the dogs onto campus for free, and people give donations in, and they're coming back in December, which I'm really pleased about, and hopefully that's something that we'll build and develop over the year. The teacups, I think, were a really good way of engaging our students, because actually mental health has got a bit of a stigma attached to it. People don't talk about it, so students were engaged in that work. So that was hopefully a really good bit of work. Over the week, we had about 550 people sign up our pledge cards, as well as many more people involved in the events. In terms of change around mental health, so one of the bits of research I'll be launching next term is we're going out to consultation with students, going actually how do students feel the university handles mental health and what can we do on that, which hopefully be a really good bit of work. But that'll be happening in term 2.
My question? Can you come up with an example of how you've protected student rights in the last 6 months?
How have I protected student rights? I think the biggest one that comes to mind is Article 4. So Article 4 is a bit of legislation which the local council have been trying to push through for the last 5 years. And just at the start of my term, I found out the council was starting to do it again. So literally about my second week in the office, I found out the council came back. So basically what it means is only 10% of students would be able to live in a street. So the council tried to push that through. And literally the whole of summer, we managed to get them to do it again. So that was really positive. Unfortunately, in October, the council re-changed their mind, but we've been doing a huge amount of work on that, and we'll be going forward. And I think it's something that actually took up a huge amount of my time, but was really valued, and actually we got a huge number of students engaged, and the City Council were really finally starting to listen to students' voices. So that's probably the biggest bit of work I've done. But as well as that, on sexual health services, so Kent County Council tried to halve the number of sexual health services available on its campus. Because of the work I did with a part-time officer, that change has stopped, and we're keeping the service that we have. So they're just 2 examples of some of that work.
How would you say this work's going? How would you say this work's going so far? Like, what's the
How do you think that the Article 4 is going?
Yeah, how do I think Article 4? I think Article 4 is going to affect students. How many student affects, I think it's really difficult to know. So where it's been implemented elsewhere in the country, there's no real research, so it's quite difficult. So what my job, I think, for the next 6 months will be to monitor the impact that has on students. And if we see that it has a really negative impact, then we'll go back and present that evidence. If we've only seen small changes, we'll have to lobby around that work. I think it's going to be really see what happens in the Canterbury housing market. I don't know what's going to happen. My feeling is that rents in some of the popular areas will increase, but we won't see that probably for another 6 months yet.
And how do you feel like you could prevent this issue from happening again?
So hopefully Canterbury City Council will start engaging with students, start listening to students. Unfortunately, we had a meeting last week with Simon Cook, who's the leader of the council, and Simon Cook quite openly said that city councillors don't tend to listen to students because they don't vote. But actually, there's 40,000 students in Canterbury. If we can get students engaged in that political discourse, and that doesn't mean voting, it just means talking about issues, hopefully they'll get listened to. So I see my role as trying to facilitate those conversations, and certainly something I have been doing since I've been in office.
What do you feel like the union's role is? There's been a lot of cases recently coming up with student landlords, bad student landlords. What do you think? What is the union doing to help students with these bad landlord cases?
So I think landlords are always a challenge. And I don't think there's an easy answer. What I think the biggest part of the work that we do is around HomeStamp. So HomeStamp is an accreditation scheme which we run alongside Christchurch and UCA, and I think we've really got to strengthen that this year. So one of the things that we are putting in place this year, which I'm really excited about, is for the first time ever we're going to start inspecting those properties. So actually, if we're saying this is a good quality house, that we're going to put an inspection team out to actually make sure that is a good quality house. And if landlords aren't up to scratch we want, we will deregister them. So hopefully that's a really positive step forward. But that only affects a small number of our houses, and probably the bigger part of work around that is making sure that all landlords are signing up to our accreditation scheme, and actually if landlords are treating students badly, that we hold them to account for that. And most of that comes down, if students let us know there's particular issues, then we can do work on that. If we don't know what specific landlords are doing, it's really difficult to do work on it.
And how can students find out more about this accreditation program?
So at the moment, it's on the front page of the Kent Union website. It's a big link to the Wait campaign, which is about advising students not to wait, to wait until January to rent houses rather than doing it now. And all the links are on there. Or they can pop up and see me in the office, drop me an email, or give me a call.
Excellent. We do actually have a question from Twitter.
That's
come in.
That's
it's related to your £2 meal.
Yep.
What's actually included in the £2 meal deal?
So I don't want to give too much away, but it will be a sandwich, a drink and a snack for £2. Until the final details are confirmed, I wouldn't want to promise anything, but there will be 3 items in that meal deal.
Okay, excellent, brilliant. Okay. So moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
Do you support the call for boycott, divestment and sanctions of Israel on campuses, and can you explain your answer?
I think this is a really difficult question. Do I support BDS, so that's boycott, diversity and sanctions? I don't support BDS on its campus. The reason for that is because I personally think it has anti-Semitic elements to it, and that means that actually that is potentially anti-Semitic in that way. And I think it's a really difficult challenge. Like, we have to understand that our campus is really diverse and really multicultural, and BDS, in my view, divides our campus and seeks to push people against each other, and I don't think that's what we should be doing. I think holding discussions around some of those issues are really important and absolutely what we should be doing, but when we seek to effectively divide people against each other, I don't think that's the right move.
Okay. Moving on.
Next question. In your campaign, you promised to work towards zero tolerance for sexual assault abuse across the whole of Canterbury. What steps have you taken to achieve this?
So we had some really good conversations. So I think this was one of the most challenging parts of my manifesto, is trying to bring together a huge number of partners. So Kent Police, the three universities, Canterbury College and Canterbury City Council, to start this work. And we had a really good partnership meeting 2 weeks ago. Finally got everyone around the table, and we basically got a green light to start on this work. So at the moment, we're just trying to find someone to fund this work, which hopefully we've now found someone who's going to fund it, and we'll start. So the idea of sort of the first stages will be giving training to all the bars and nightclubs in Canterbury and making sure they take a zero tolerance approach in their bars. And the next step after that might extend to things like taxis, how to get people home safely, and make sure that actually if you're in the back of a taxi and a taxi driver sees something, who do they report it to and things like that. But the first stages, which are really exciting, which will hopefully happen next term, if not, they'll definitely be in place for September next year, is around zero tolerance in our nighttime economy, and I'm really excited about that.
How would you enforce that in bars and clubs in Canterbury itself?
So I think one part of it is self-regulation and getting bars to do it. The other exciting thing is in the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, the round sort of sexual harassment and discrimination is going to be put into, hopefully, into Canterbury's licensing policy. So that means ultimately, if a bar wasn't tackling sexual harassment, it could have its alcohol licence taken off it. So I think that is a really positive step forward, and will be one of the first places in the country to do that.
Excellent. Your manifesto pledges were very ambitious.
They were.
Including creating free citywide Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Have you made any... What's the progress in regards to this project?
So the progress on this is pretty limited because Article 4 came up, which soured the relationship with Canterbury City Council. Still something I definitely hope to do work on, but I think the first step for me is getting citywide zero tolerance in place. And once that's in place, and we've got partners working together, working on the free Wi-Fi. But I do know the university are currently totally separate to me doing some work around their relationships in town and where students can study in town. So we are making progress on it. Probably not as quickly as I wanted, but it's definitely happening.
Do you have sort of an average sort of timescale when we can expect this to be set up?
So I think like citywide zero tolerance will be quite a good indication of how quickly we move forward. Like if our partners come together and work really well going forward, that we might be able to see it within the next year. If not, it might be a longer term thing. But it's definitely something I hope to start while I'm here, even if I don't see it when I leave.
All right. Brilliant.
And what would you say is your greatest achievement this academic year?
I think Mental Health Week was my biggest achievement because I think we actually got people talking about mental health on campus, and it's something that I'm like always been talking about mental health during my time at university, and actually getting, even if it was one student talking about mental health and accessing a service which I didn't know existed, that is a really positive thing. But actually I think over that week we got a lot more people doing that, so that was probably my biggest achievement so far this term, and I hopefully citywide zero tolerance for our next one.
Excellent, brilliant. We do have actually got a another question from Twitter. Why has Tom's job of looking after student media has been passed along to you?
I'm not entirely sure what that question means. So Tom is still absolutely responsible for dealing with student media. Hopefully we're getting more officers engaged with working with student media, which I think is a really important relationship, and developing those relationships going further.
All right, excellent.
Well, thanks, Roy, for coming on the show.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And remember, for those of you watching online, remember to tweet your questions at Kent_TV.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So, right.
Yeah.
I come from a town where we actually have the whole town has actually got Wi-Fi that we can access. Yeah. So you can walk around and you can access the Wi-Fi. But I have like it's a bit weird coming to Canterbury and finding that I can't actually access this. So like, anyway, what do you think about it? It's like,
see, I didn't even know how it would be technologically possible. It's like, like I mean, we have in London we have like the cloud.
Yeah.
But it's not like city. It's not city well. If you go on the bus and stuff, it changes no matter like where you depending. Even like I'm marveled by even the campus-wide Wi-Fi. The fact that you can go anywhere on campus and it's just like it's a marvel to me.
It's like the campus Wi-Fi, but on a city scale.
Yeah, that sounds like amazing. That's like.
All right. Anyway, up next we have Jack Lay, VP of Education. Hi, Jack. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Yeah, I know it is a bit cold in here. Very cold studio going on.
Alright, straight on to it. First question: what do you think you've achieved so far this year?
This year,
Yeah.
I think a lot of stuff. It's hard to define because obviously I've been with this my second term.
Can we quickly ask if you could quickly check and put your microphone on?
Little
There's a switch on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's on.
Okay, someone didn't put that on for me.
Thank you,
what was the
Thank you
question?
very much. Sorry. Yeah,
Thank you.
repeat the question for you.
The first question was: what do you think you've achieved so far this year?
It's hard to define exactly what I've done this year compared to last year because it's been very different and my goals have been slightly different. So, I mean, specifically this year, I've managed to actually, I think, engage with my course reps a lot more than perhaps did last year. A lot of stuff last year I tried to do from quite top level, not working with necessarily student reps as well as I could have done. So I've been doing some of that. But then also, I think, actually, my wins on hidden course costs, which you might have heard about as well, while the policy actually started this year and there's some work doing it about it last year, I think being able to say to students, actually now, we have a policy, so you don't have to pay for printing, and you should know your costs up front. Is a really, really big achievement, I think. So maybe that's my main two, but lots of stuff. I've got a couple of wins that are coming up, but I can't talk about, unfortunately. So they'll be announced soon, which I'm really, really excited about as well. So
Just go back to one of your people's point. You said you're engaging with. What do you mean when you say engaging with course
So,
reps? What does that entail exactly?
so for people who don't know, we have course rep systems. There's a rep for every single course on campus every single year. And my role, as part of my role as sabbatical officer, is to lead them. And I think last year, perhaps didn't do that as well as I could have done. I think perhaps didn't work with my faculty reps, who are like the top level ones as well. So I was conscious of that coming into my second year. So we really kind of developed the training, developed how much we're working with them more. So kind of building more engagement and hoping actually, so we have a lot more stronger reps who are able to do a better job with students. So.
All right, excellent. The next question is a bit of a long one. So, okay. So, have you seen the petition for the library construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah. How are you planning to raise the issues outlined in the petition to the university board?
Okay. So, I found that petition quite difficult to understand exactly what was the main underlying problem. I think. So that's one thing. So if I've got this completely wrong, I really apologise. I have messaged the person who started the petition, but they haven't got back to me, and I've messaged someone else who signed it. And I think I've tried to build my understanding of it. Only started last week, I think. So just to put that claimer there anyway at the start. But I think what the problem is, I think it's frustration from students that actually some of them have been here for 3 years and there's still building work going on in the library. And while the development and the new space is absolutely fantastic, they've now the middle core section, which has been closed off, so which is disappointing. But I think we also have to understand in the long run it'll be a lot better for students. So I think there's that frustration about having to move between the two sides and what's happening about it. But actually, I've been raising this with the library all along and making sure they're consistently doing the best they can for students. So making sure that actually, if they are walking between the two, I think next couple of weeks they might be giving out free umbrellas or looking at loaning umbrellas so students can walk between the two areas. They're trying to replicate services on each side. So yeah, I get it, and actually I'm continuing to raise these issues with the library. I held a focus group actually yesterday. I tried to advertise it, just to try and get students to talk to me, but no one showed up, unfortunately. So it's been also quite difficult for me to understand the core issue of that. And if the petition organiser or is listening to this, please get in contact with me because I want to talk to you.
What about students who are always spending a lot of time in the library, who are spending most of their university life here, who find that that library is just, at the moment, a construction site?
Yes.
They're also they're spending that time there. They're having the inconveniences, but they're still spending the same amount of money, and they don't get the long-term gain.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I mean, unfortunately, I completely understand that. Well, I spent all 3 years of my life in the library as well, and when I studied, and actually the final year of that, it was a construction site too. So I completely get that. But it's one of those things when you're a student, you kind of have to understand. I want the library to be better for future students, and it's part of that thing. Obviously, it's the short-term impact is really, really hard. And actually, last year, while the middle section is closed, it'll be better in the long run, I think. So if that kind of makes sense. I just think while obviously it is a construction site and there is major issues around it, we have a fantastic new space, and once that's opened for the next year, the year after, etc., it'll be a lot better. So kind of, I am raising this with the library. There is a lot of issues, and we are trying to do as much as we can. I'm meeting the library again next week about it, so I will be raising these issues consistently, and I think completely understand basically what students are feeling, and I get that because I would have felt like the same.
Okay. Moving on.
This leads on to the next question.
Yep.
Some students feel like Kent Union represents the university's interests rather than the students' interests. What would you say to that? For instance, such the library is more of a university selling tool rather than a student tool.
I don't think you can. There's two separate points there, I guess. What the question I completely disagree with. We represent students. We have democratic structures. I've been elected by students. I work on my manifesto goals. If you go on my blog, you can track my work towards those goals, and also work with issues actually for students and use my influence and power to try and do that. But I guess, what you're teasing out there is the library's a marketing tool or whatever, which it is. And I want the university to market the library when it's finished. It's a fantastic space, and I wouldn't expect any other university not to do that. But I think, again, the concern is how they perhaps do that and what they're seen to be doing. And I genuinely think the university isn't trying to market it in a way so it looks like it's better than it is. I think they're just doing what every single university do across the country. And a bit depressing maybe, but I guess it's what life is like. So. But I absolutely disagree. Kent Union does represent students. We do. I work with students. I work in an office. I try and keep open. I run focus groups, as I said yesterday, try and meet with students, message petition organisers. And we have a petition system on our website as well, trying to open up this and engage with more students deliberately because of that issue.
So do you think that there's a danger you become institutionalised and lax up at stepping up to the university as a result? I
think there's a danger for anyone to get institutionalised, especially if you're in a role for 2-3 years. That's why SABBs can only do it for 2 years, because by the time you've done 2 years, it's been 2 years since you've been a student. So, yeah, that is a risk. That's a risk for any role, though. You can become institutionalised as a course rep. There's no different, but I disagree. I think we're held to account in events like this deliberately because of that. So, yeah, I disagree. But there is always a risk, and I'm not going to hide away from that, I guess.
Okay, all right.
Do you feel you become institutionalised?
No. If you look at my record, like every single manifesto point, I've published it on my blog every single month. I've made progress against every single point. So if I haven't become institutionalised, I don't see how, because I've hit all my goals, which I've said to students when I ran. So no, not at all.
Okay. Next question is, how many times have you been to Medway this term, and what have you achieved there?
This term, I've been to Medway 3. Oh, it depends. If it includes the summer, it'll be a different number. But I've probably been about 3 or 4 times since the start of term. And my role's different in a sense. If you're playing sports, if you're doing student activities, if you're looking after the welfare of campus, you need to go to Medway to achieve wins there. But obviously, for example, my campaign for Hidden Course Cast, nearly all of that was based in Canterbury, because I sit on the meetings which represent students, and they happen to be in Canterbury. That's affected Medway students. So that policy affects every single student on both campuses, in Brussels, in Athens, or whatever. There's no issue. So perhaps I haven't been there as much as I should be, but that doesn't mean I'm not achieving for Medway students. At the moment, I'm working with a couple of schools to see how we can improve study space there as well. So there's hopefully going to be some good wins in the coming in the coming months.
Do you feel like students in Medway feel underrepresented?
I think some do, and it's always that balance, isn't it? I want to achieve for Medway students, and if that means I have to sit in meetings in Canterbury to do that, I'd rather do that than going and sitting and talking to Medway students and not really achieving those wins. So it's that balance, and there is more to be done. I think opening up our democratic structures, as we did last term, and I was heavily involved in the campaign for that, has allowed Medway students to be more involved in our democracy.
All right. And what does the government's green paper on education mean for students at Kent?
Initially, not much. It's a discussion paper. There's a lot of detail which hasn't been ironed out, so it's quite difficult to fully understand the impacts at the moment. But for Kent students studying at the moment, not much will change. It's prospective students coming in the next 2, 3, 4 years it will really change. Tuition fees are probably going to go up by inflation, by more than inflation. It's still not clear how that's going to work, though. So But that could be a big issue. Maintenance grants can be converted to loans, which I think is a massive, massive problem. We've done some work on that, lobbying our Vice Chancellor and lobbying our MPs. And also, I think there'll be a greater focus on the importance of teaching at universities rather than the importance of research, which is actually a really good thing because most students come here to learn, not to do research. So, but obviously, it's still an important part of university. So they're the kind of main things which are being teased out, but it's still quite difficult to understand the full ramifications until the actual proposals are released, and that'll be in January, February time.
And how can someone such as yourself, in your role, tackle such a big national issue?
So there's work that we need to be doing at NUS. So the National Union of Students, they represent students on a national scale. So Nina obviously sits on the executive of that committee, so working with her position to work with that, and also lobbying them to be campaigning on the things that I think, or Kent Union thinks, Kent students need. Secondly, the discussion paper, there's been all university student unions and different, even individual students can comment on it. So at the moment, I'm in the very early stages of drafting a consultation document, which will then be working with different student reps and different students to talk about if this is what we want to be talking about. So that's how, in terms of, we can't do a national campaign, we're not set up to do that, but we can use our influence to kind of try and make a difference, I think.
Okay. And last question: what do you think? What do you hope your legacy will be when you leave office?
Big question. Yesterday, I was like, I had 7 months and 4 days left, I think, today, which isn't really that much time. What, at the moment, I'm writing, and the big part of my time actually spent is writing kind of strategy for education over the next 5 years. So what do Kent students think their education should look in the next 5 years? So my hope is that then I'll get that finished. There'll be a kind of framework for future officers and future reps to kind of look at and be working towards with the university to do that. So there's stuff in there about not being able to pay for, you make your £9,000 fees, that's it, everything is included, blah, blah, blah. And there's lots of different things to that. And we've got all our consultation documents from the Big Kent Review, which I did last year. So I hope that's one thing. And actually I'm hoping to have a couple, I'm going to lobby the university to have a couple more staff members for our representation department, because I think actually we need more staff to be able to support students to do that. So that's hopefully my legacy. But also on my manifesto points, the 24/7 library in Canterbury, reduction in hidden course costs and everything else like that. So that's what I think my legacy will be, and I hope it will be as well.
Excellent. All right, that's all we have time for at the moment. But thank you very much for taking your time to come on the show and give us an insight on what you've currently been up to on your role.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you later.
So last year the elections was fantastic.
It was hectic.
It was hectic. Yeah.
See, I remember because this is probably when I was first getting involved in Canterbury and just stuff in Canterbury in general. I remember walking into the Maybury campus and just seeing what everyone campaigning, all the flyers, going to venue, voting. It was really exciting stuff.
Yeah, because I remember for KTV that myself and George Dulles, we did the results night for the elections, and that was great seeing like what all the sabbatical officers will be getting up to throughout the year, and it's good to know what they've actually been up to now. So
yeah, no,
it's
good,
very interesting.
It's good to keep up. Yeah, it's good to keep up what they're doing.
Yeah. All right.
Well, our next guest is Tammy. How are you today?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Very well, very well.
Not bad.
We're going to kick this off. The
Right,
first
that's
question. So, how do you prioritise the student body in the face of other university interests?
So, in that sense, do you mean like, do I put students' interests first before that of the university?
Yes.
I think I do. I mean, ultimately, that's my job. So my primary interest is making sure that I represent students. Ultimately, they're the ones that elected me. I sit on quite a lot of high-level meetings with the university, and I sit on the university council, which does put me in a difficult position sometimes because I'm almost a trustee for the university, but at the same time, it's my job really to be there to make sure that students' voices are being heard and that what I'm hearing from students is being conveyed and that the people at the top are hearing that. And
how have you been putting student interests first?
So I often consult with my
main volunteers who are the college presidents. I meet with them every 2 weeks and make sure that I know what's going on with them, because they're a really great way to kind of access students around the university. And Kane, you're on one of the student committees, and you guys have really great access to the students within your colleges, and it's a really great way to hear back from what's going on sort of on grass levels. And I mentor the international students officer as well, so I'm really up to date with what happens with international students, and I make sure that I'm able to take those things forward.
And do you feel like there's a danger that you've also become institutionalised?
I mean, I had Jack got a similar question as well, and to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what that means, really. I personally wouldn't think I am. I mean, ultimately, I'm, as I said before, I'm a student representative first. That's my top priority. I mean, the only thing the only situation which I would be perhaps loyal to university is a situation where I'm trying to make sure the university becomes better in order for its students. But ultimately, if I was put into a decision where I had to make a decision and the university disagreed with it, but I thought that ultimately that decision was the best for students, I'd choose that decision.
Okay. Moving on, Sophie.
The next question. Since the changes to the democratic structures of Kent Union took place, how has it affected student democracy, and are you pleased with what has happened, and can you tell us a bit more about the changes and the impact that's been made?
Of course, I am so pleased with what's happened. I mean, I've been here at Kent for 4.5 years now, it's quite a long time, and I just think that now having everything online is just so much better. We've seen so many more students engaging with it, which is really great. I mean, last year our democracy was shocking. I have to admit, no one turned up to any of our meetings. It was just dire, and I don't think it was the students' fault. I think it was the fact that we just become old-fashioned. We were still using the same model that we had at this university 50 years ago when it first started, and it just didn't work anymore. And we can obviously see that it's a lot better now that we're all online. I mean, the whole process that we went through, it took us 2 years. We did massive amounts of consultation, and I really hope that the student body feels that what we're doing now reflects what they thought. So I really hope that, as this year goes on, we look at it, we improve it, we'll get into a really solid system where students feel truly represented.
Excellent, brilliant. And what have you done to stop the cuts to student maintenance grants?
So I've been quite busy over the summer. Me and Jack led on a petition to the Vice-Chancellor that we ran in July, which was quite late, admittedly. Most students had already gone by then, but unfortunately that's when all the stuff came out. So we did what we could. We went and spoke to her about it. We expressed our concerns. Unfortunately, that didn't get very far because Universities UK, of which our Vice-Chancellor is the chair, are supporting the cuts, so it was very difficult to persuade her when the rest of all the chancellors. So we thought, okay, well, there's no point us wasting too much time on this. So over the summer, I met with local MPs. I met with Julian Brazier here in Canterbury. I met with Kelly Tolhurst, who is the MP for Rochester and Strood. I contacted Raymond Chisty, but unfortunately he didn't reply to me, who's the MP for Gillingham, and went and spoke to them about the cuts. Unfortunately, they're all Conservative MPs, so they all supported the cuts. So it was very difficult to persuade them. I managed to persuade Julian and Kelly to write letters to Joe Johnson explaining my concerns. I've also been assured that if the student numbers do drop significantly in the next 3 years, there will be a review. But I have a feeling that's the local general party line. We're still doing what we can because obviously it's not acceptable. I recently had a column actually in the Canterbury Times, a letter addressing to Julian Brazier about the cuts. It's something that we're still in dialogue with him about because I feel like even if we do go ahead with these cuts, which I really don't feel comfortable with, I feel the government should really be thinking about what they're going to do to make sure that the widening participation agenda isn't affected and that we're still doing all that we can to make sure that students are supported at university.
And can you give us an update on what you've achieved in terms of these efforts?
So far, we had a letter written to Joe Johnson from 2 separate MPs expressing our concerns here. We've had assurance that in the next 3 years, if the numbers do drop, that there will be a review, and we've managed to secure additional conversations essentially with Julian throughout this. What our aims are now is to make sure that actually they are properly thinking it through, because it doesn't seem that, for example, they've really thought about the future consequences. We can't really find any data which explains that, so that's what we're trying to explore, but it's not going to be an easy battle to win.
Next question. Could you explain the reason behind the union spending money on new Nokia phones for all SABs to use as work phones?
So what we're currently doing is we're getting rid of our landlines for the SABs because we've realised that it's very difficult because of the sort of jobs that we have. We're barely ever in one place. So we thought it would be a lot more effective if we have phones that are portable rather than landlines. So actually in the end it's going to cost the same amount of money because we're taking the landline out. So the cost of the landline is now being used on the phone instead.
Okay, excellent. Why, if there is a general workspace for phone and their main function is to call directly from your desk phone, why not just get cheap basic phones?
That was the cheapest option we could get. It's the cheapest contract we could find. And it's quite handy as well because we can get our emails on it too, because not all of us have smartphones, so it limits those of us who aren't able to work on the go.
Right, so next question. How far have you gone? How far have you got onto your manifesto point to lobby the university to make all core texts available as ebooks?
So that's something I've been working with Jack on, and to be honest with you, we haven't got too far so far this year because mainly this term my priority has been working on this guarantor scheme for our international students. I'm currently trying to persuade the university to go back to the system they used to have, where they used to cover international students and be their guarantors for their lettings off campus. And I need to get it all sorted out by end of January. So to be honest with you, my top priority has been doing that because I've been working on it for quite some time now. We've been going back and forth. And my concern is that if it's not done by then it won't be done at all.
And how's it going? Do you have a time frame, like as to how long it'll be reinstated?
The guarantor scheme.
Yes.
So hopefully, if we manage to get a scheme, which I feel really, really positive about, and I think we are definitely moving forward, if it is affirmed by end of January, beginning of February, it should be in place in September. So it should be really positive news for our students because I know, I mean, myself, when I was a student, I had to pay all my rent up front for an entire year, and that's just not a feasible thing. My parents had to take out a costly loan. I'm an only child, so my parents were able to do that, but not everyone can do that. So I'm really, really hoping that will help many of our international EU students.
Thank you. Next question. Why do you think the SABs are representative of the student body when so few students vote you in?
Well, actually, we have quite a high percentage of students voting for us compared to other universities nationally. I mean, ultimately, I would want the whole student body to vote, and we do try and engage with the entire student body, and it's unfortunate that only a certain percentage do, but we do try to make sure that the rest of students are represented. I mean, we work with other represented students, like from the societies, sports clubs, the part-time officers. We also go out and do consultations, like recently, I don't know if Jack mentioned, with the stuff going on with the library, he actually had an open forum inviting students to come in and talk to him about his concerns. As well with the new democratic structures that's open to all students, and ultimately we are then mandated to carry out what it is that those students want. So we kind of use all those sort of systems to make sure that we're engaging with everyone that we can.
And as a follow-up, what do you think can be done to increase electoral participation in Medway?
I think that actually having stuff online will help. I know that during leadership elections, a lot of candidates find it difficult when they go over there because of the fact that they find it hard to communicate, find out if it's a Kent student, a Greenwich student. It gets very complex. Ultimately, I think that Medway is always going to be a bit difficult, but I think that one thing that will definitely help us when we get the new the student hub building over there, because that will mean that there'll actually be a place for students to congregate on campus, because currently there isn't. They kind of hang around in Pilkington, but it's not the same as it is here in Canterbury, that you have, you know, a lot of students milling around. A lot of students don't really hang around in central areas, apart from maybe going to the library, something like that. So I'm hoping when you have the student union building, that will really help. Because we can actually have a centralised area where people campaign. But I mean, I don't know, but we'll have to see. But I'm fingers crossed it will help.
And what have you been doing to college identity on campus?
So this year we've taken a really big step forward. We now have set up a steering group with all the college committee presidents and the college masters, and we've set up these subgroups where we're discussing the particular issues that have to do with college life. And I'm working with them all really closely so that we can compile a paper that I want to go to Student Experience Board, which will be focusing a lot on social space, because it's something that's come up a lot, that there's not very much social space at all on campus, but in particular in the colleges there's no real reason for students to go back to their college, and that's such a shame really, considering we have this collegiate system. Not many universities have it. We should really be using it to benefit the students. So I'm hoping that with this paper it will prove the need for those spaces. I'm also going to be going and trying to visit some other universities with collegiate systems as well, to kind of see the benefits, to try and persuade the university that actually it does help. It helps with student engagement. It helps with the sense of community on campus, and hopefully move forward. And I've got a lot of support from the College Masters, working really closely with the college committees on it, so I'm really hoping it'll be a really positive campaign.
And are you going to be implementing these social spaces anytime soon?
Well, to be honest with you, it's not going to be something that's going to be happening now. My best hope is going to be that there's going to be a plan for the future. It's not going to be happening in my time because there's not the physical space. It's going to be about trying to persuade academic schools perhaps to give us some space. Perhaps not. Maybe that's not the best solution. Perhaps it's building new spaces. I'd like to try and get something into the estate strategy. Currently we're looking at the Rutherford Junior Common Room, and actually we've managed to get some funding from estates, so we're going to be looking at refurbishing that space. And I'm hoping as well that when that space starts to get used as more as well, the university will recognise the importance and start to prioritise creating general social space over other things.
And do you feel your manifesto is overly ambitious, considering that most of your time is spent with routine university meetings?
No, I don't think so, particularly this year's, as admittedly probably in my first year it was, and I think it probably is for most first year officers, because they don't really understand probably how much time you end up having to spend doing so much other stuff. So this year I kind of pared back a bit. I thought actually I'm going to go for more important stuff rather than a wide variety of things, just to kind of please everyone. And no, I'm pretty sure that I think that I should be able to achieve what I've aimed to, because ultimately I want to by the end of this year, and if not, definitely make steps forward. But I don't think it's over ambitious.
What structures are in place for the next president?
Pardon, sorry?
What structures are in place for the next president?
In what sense?
And how do you think you've improved the position?
Oh, okay. So I wouldn't know if I've necessarily improved the position. I mean, we've been improving the union in general over this past year. So the stuff about the, changing the democratic structures, I think that's made life a lot easier for the new SABBs coming forward. This year I'm working on scrutiny panels, so looking more at the accountability of officers, because obviously we have KTV question time, keeping tabs on the SABBs, which is really great, and I think it's a really great way of all students engaging and not necessarily having to be there. But at the same time, I think that we need something where the SABBs can get grilled a little bit more, and also give the SABBs the opportunity to talk about stuff that's not just on their manifesto as well, all the other stuff they're working on, so the general student body can become a bit more aware of it as well, especially if they want to get engaged. For example, the stuff about the maintenance grants cuts, that wasn't on my manifesto because I didn't think it was going to happen, and then it did, and so I've been spending a lot of time on that. But ultimately on the website, and when people look at my manifesto, it's not there, but it takes up quite a large proportion of my time. So I'm going to be working on that a lot, and I'm hoping that that will help the future SABB team as well, to make sure they're being held to account.
What would you like your legacy to be when you leave office?
I definitely want this guarantor scheme to be put in place, because I think it'll have a really positive impact on the student body, as well as having a future plan for college affiliation. Also, one of my manifesto points was looking into the possibility of a student union letting agency, which we're doing currently through our board, and I personally feel really keen for that to happen. But of course we need to look at its relationship to home stamp. We need to look at the current climate, but I'm really hoping that the steps will move forward, and that it's something that we are genuinely going to start doing by the time I've left.
I think that's all we have. Also, thank you, Tammy, for coming on the show.
No worries, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right then, bye.
Thank you. I would love to thank all the SABBs for coming on today, and we'd like to thank Kent Union as well.
Yes, sadly that is all that we have time for on the show today. It's been very insightful, hasn't it?
It's been very insightful. I've learned a lot today.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot today.
Okay, and so I've been Alexander Lilly.
And I've been Kenny De Williams.
And you have been watching Keeping Tabs on
with
the
the
SABBs.
SABBs.